In the far interior of Eurasia, mountains rise where Siberia meets the steppes of Central Asia. These are the Altai Mountains, a place of sharp ridges, deep valleys, and forests of larch, birch, and pine. Snow lingers long into spring. In winter, the wind sweeps cold across the ridges. In summer, rivers rush down from glaciers, and meadows bloom briefly with grasses and wildflowers. This is a land where survival has always been fragile. It is here, in these mountains, that a secret branch of humanity was uncovered. On a slope above the Anhui River lies a cave carved into limestone. Its entrance opens broadly toward the valley, with light reaching part of the interior before fading into shadow. This is Denisova Cave. For centuries, it was known locally as a quiet refuge. The name recalls a Russian hermit, Denis, who lived there in the 18th century. But its deeper importance became known only in recent decades, as archaeologists began to dig through its sediments. What they found would alter the story of human origins. Inside the cave, soil and rock had built up layer upon layer over hundreds of thousands of years. Each layer preserved fragments, bones of animals, stone tools, traces of fires, and the remains of humans. Some deposits stretch back more than 300,000 years, making this one of the longest records of occupation in northern Eurasia. Excavations revealed that Neanderthals had used the cave, that modern humans had been there too, and that something else, something unexpected, was also present. In 2008, archaeologists recovered a small fragment from these deposits. It was a piece of a finger bone, small enough to balance on a fingertip. At first, it seemed insignificant, one among thousands of fragments. Yet ancient DNA extracted from it told a new story. The genetic sequence did not match Neanderthals nor modern humans. It belonged to an entirely different branch of humanity, previously unknown. Scientists named them Denisovans, after the cave that revealed them. This discovery was extraordinary. For over a century, Neanderthals had been the only recognized cousins of modern humans in Eurasia. The tiny bone proved there had been another lineage, hidden in plain sight, whose existence had never been suspected. From one fragment came the realization that human history was broader and more complex than imagined. The cave yielded further surprises. Other fragments turned out to be Denisovan. Some were Neanderthal. In one case, DNA revealed an individual whose mother was Neanderthal and father was Denisovan, the first direct evidence of such a hybrid. Denisova Cave had been shared by different human groups at different times. It was not simply a shelter, but a crossroads where lineages met. Why did these mountains attract so many? The answer lies in geography. The Altai sit at a junction of ecosystems: open steppe to the west, boreal forest to the north, high mountains to the south. Herds of horse, bison, and ibex moved through the valleys. Rivers held fish, and cliffs provided stone for tool-making. For Ice Age humans, the cave was a safe place from predators and weather, close to resources needed for survival. Among the artifacts, archaeologists found ornaments, beads made from animal bone, pendants shaped from ivory, even a needle with an eye, among the oldest known in Siberia. Such finds show symbolic thought and advanced skill. They challenge the idea that only modern humans made ornaments or stitched clothing. Creativity was not the sole property of one lineage, but was shared widely. Still, Denisovans remain mysterious. Their fossil record is thin, just a few teeth, a jawbone from the Tibetan plateau, and fragments from this cave. No complete skull has yet been found. What did they look like? Were they stocky like Neanderthal? Or slender like early modern humans? DNA suggests dark eyes, dark skin, broad skulls, but these are reconstructions without faces. The Denisovans remain unseen, known more through their genes than their bones. The climate in which they lived was shifting. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. Sea levels fell, exposing wide coastal plains, then rose again as ice melted. Grasslands spread during cold periods. Forests returned with warmth. These cycles shaped where humans could live. Denisova Cave, with its protected interior, may have served as a refuge during harsh glacial times. Its sediments preserved traces of fire pits that warmed people through winters, long before history was written. The science of ancient DNA allows this hidden lineage to be known. For decades, tiny bone chips were overlooked. Now, even the smallest piece can reveal entire genomes. From the Denisovan fingerbone, researchers reconstructed nearly a complete genetic map. It showed connections to living peoples across Asia and Oceania. Populations in Melanesia and parts of Southeast Asia carry Denisovan ancestry. Some Denisovan genes help modern Tibetans survive at high altitude, where oxygen is scarce. A single bone fragment links distant continents and distant ages. A lesser-known detail is the sheer number of fragments studied. At Denisova Cave, scientists have applied a method called zoom-S, analyzing collagen proteins to identify animal versus human remains. This has allowed human fragments the size of match heads to be recognized and tested. Without these techniques, the Denisovans might still remain invisible, lost among thousands of animal bones. Yet, despite these advances, major questions remain. Why are Denisovan fossils so few? Did they range mostly in regions where bones do not preserve, such as humid forests? Or has archaeology simply not reached their main territories? Some researchers argue they may have been widespread across Asia. Others think they survived only in scattered groups. Until more sites are found, their range remains uncertain. From a planetary view, the rarity of Denisovan remains is no surprise. Ice ages reshaped environments again and again. Rivers changed course, burying sites. Rising seas drowned coastlines where humans once lived. Most of the evidence of their existence has likely been erased. What survives is due to chance, a cave dry enough, cold enough, and stable enough to preserve bones for tens of millennia. Today, Denisova Cave still lies quiet. Snow gathers on the ridges. Inside, archaeologists continue their work with brushes and sieves, collecting new fragments. Each season may yield another piece, another clue. Perhaps one day a skull will be found. For now, Denisovans remain a lineage glimpsed through fragments, a shadow branch of humanity known from genes rather than faces. The story begins here, in the Altai Mountains, with a hidden bone. From that fragment, entire histories unfold, migrations across Asia, adaptations to high mountains, connections to people alive today. Denisova Cave reminds us how much of human history is still buried, waiting to be uncovered. It shows that even the smallest pieces of bone can change everything. The Denisovans remain mysterious, yet their legacy endures, both in landscapes that once sheltered them and in the genes carried by millions around the world. Denisova Cave is not a single chamber, but a system of stone halls shaped over hundreds of thousands of years. The cave sits about 28 meters above the valley floor of the Anhui River. From the entrance, one looks out across forests of larch and birch, and beyond them, the snow-covered ridges of the Altai. Cold winds sweep down in winter. Yet inside the cave, the air is calm, dry, and cool. This stability has preserved sediments layer upon layer, making the cave one of the richest archives of human prehistory. Archaeologists divide the cave into three main chambers. The main chamber is the largest, lit faintly by daylight reaching through the entrance. The east gallery runs narrow and deep, while the south chamber curves back into shadow. Excavations began in the 1970s and continue to this day. Teams work slowly, often removing soil by hand in squares measured in centimeters. Every fragment is recorded, because each could carry a clue to life tens of thousands of years ago. The sediments reveal an extraordinary story. More than 300,000 years of occupation are layered within these chambers. Few other sites hold such continuity. Within the earth lie bones of animals, chips of stone, charcoal from fires, and fragments of humans. Over time, different lineages made use of the same shelter. Neanderthals left their traces, Denisovans their bones, and modern humans their ornaments. In this one cave, three branches of humanity converge. Stone tools appear throughout the deposits. Early layers hold large flakes struck from cores, simple yet effective. Later layers contain long blades, carefully shaped for precision. Some tools are made from local limestone, others from flint carried in from distant valleys. The tools show adaptation to changing environments and different groups of makers. A hearth nearby reveals ash and burned bone, suggesting meals eaten in the dim light. Each hearth is a moment of warmth now long extinguished. The most surprising finds are ornaments. Beads of animal bone, pendants carved from mammoth ivory, and a needle with a drilled eye have all been uncovered. These items suggest symbolic thought and personal adornment. They show that whoever lived here cared not only for survival, but also for meaning and expression. For a long time, scholars assumed such creativity belonged solely to modern humans. Yet here, in layers far older, Denisovans and Neanderthals also left signs of symbolic life. One fragment in particular changed understanding. A small bone, less than 3 centimeters long, was analyzed for DNA. It came from a young girl. Her genome showed her mother was Neanderthal, her father Denisovan. This is the clearest evidence yet of direct interbreeding between human lineages. It shows that boundaries were not absolute. Denisova Cave was not just a refuge, it was also a meeting place. Animal bones fill the layers too. Remains of horse, bison, reindeer, ibex, and even woolly rhinoceros are common. Some bones carry cut marks from stone blades, signs of butchery. Others bear tooth marks from hyenas, which also sheltered here. The variety reflects a shifting environment. During cold phases, steppe grasslands supported large herds. During warmer phases, forests spread, bringing new species. Human occupation followed these changes, ebbing and flowing with climate. Traces invisible to the eye add more detail. Soil samples from the cave have yielded ancient DNA of humans and animals. Even when bones are absent, fragments of genetic material remain in sediments. This technique, called environmental DNA, confirms the presence of Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans in specific layers. It extends the record beyond what bones alone can show. A lesser-known fact about the cave is its remarkable microclimate. Its chambers stay cool, dark, and relatively dry throughout the year. This has slowed the decay of DNA. In most parts of the world, genetic material vanishes after a few thousand years, but here, sequences tens of millennia old survive. Without this preservation, the Denisovans might still be unknown. Yet puzzles remain. Did Neanderthals and Denisovans ever sit by the same fire? Or did they occupy the cave at different times, separated by centuries? Archaeology cannot always distinguish. Tools from one layer may lie near ornaments from another, blurred by the slow mixing of sediments. Still, the hybrid girl proves that contact occurred somewhere, whether in this cave or beyond. The cave's layers whisper of encounters, but do not show them directly. From a wider view, Denisova Cave is unusual because it endured. Many shelters collapsed or eroded under Ice Age conditions. Here, the limestone walls held firm. The cave lay at the margin of glaciers, cold, but not destroyed by ice sheets. Humans returned again and again, across changing climates. The result is a sequence unmatched elsewhere in Asia. There are long gaps in occupation too. Some layers show no human presence, only traces of animals. Perhaps winters grew too harsh, or herds moved away. For centuries, the cave may have lain silent, filled only with dripping water and the scratch of hyenas. Then, when climates shifted, people returned. Each visit added a new layer, building a record that today reaches meters deep. Excavation continues carefully. Each season, archaeologists collect more fragments, slivers of bone, flakes of stone, beads, teeth. Each is catalogued and studied. Over time, the picture sharpens. Denisova Cave is more than a site. It is a chronicle. It records Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans, not as separate tales, but as intertwined histories. The cave reminds us that humanity was never alone. Different groups shared landscapes, resources, and sometimes even families. They adapted to the same climates, hunted the same animals, and used the same shelters. Denisova Cave holds this shared story in its layers of earth. What survives is only a fraction, but enough to show that our past was complex, diverse, and interconnected. Today, the cave still opens quietly above the valley. Snow settles on its entrance in winter, and summer breezes stir the trees below. Inside, it remains dim and cool. Archaeologists work slowly, brushing soil, recording layers, preserving a record that might otherwise vanish. Each find adds to a mosaic stretching across continents and millennia. The cave of many occupants continues to speak, even after hundreds of thousands of years. In 2008, a tiny bone was recovered from Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains. At first, it appeared unremarkable, just a fragment of a finger, no larger than a coin. By itself, it told little, yet hidden inside, preserved by the cold and stable cave sediments, strands of ancient DNA had survived for more than 50,000 years. When sequenced, those strands revealed something extraordinary, a lineage of humans that no one had known existed. From that single fragment, the Denisovans stepped into the story of prehistory. Ancient DNA is fragile. In most environments, it decays within a few thousand years, broken apart by heat, water, and bacteria. Denisova Cave, however, offered unusual conditions. Its chambers remain cool throughout the year, and the sediment layers protect organic remains. In 2010, scientists announced they had sequenced a nearly complete genome from the finger bone. It was one of the best preserved ancient genomes ever obtained, and it belonged neither to Neanderthals nor to modern humans. It represented a distinct lineage, closely related to Neanderthals but clearly different. The Denisovans were discovered not through skulls or skeletons, but through DNA. Genetic analysis placed them as a sister group to Neanderthals. Both lineages diverged from the ancestors of Homo sapiens around 500,000 years ago. Neanderthals spread westward into Europe and the Near East. Denisovans moved east across Asia. For tens of thousands of years, they endured separately, but sometimes overlapped in regions such as Siberia. The Altai Mountains became a meeting ground, where different human lineages used the same shelter at different times. The Denisovan genome also revealed their legacy in living people. Modern populations carry fragments of their DNA, evidence of interbreeding with Homo sapiens. Melanesians and Papuans have up to 6% Denisovan ancestry. Indigenous groups in the Philippines also show high levels. Smaller traces occur in East and South Asia. These genetic signatures prove that as modern humans spread across Asia, they encountered and interbred with Denisovans. The meetings were not rare or singular. They happened multiple times, leaving a mosaic of Denisovan ancestry in populations today. One striking contribution is the EPAS1 gene, inherited from Denisovans, which helps Tibetans survive at high altitude. On the Himalayan plateau, oxygen is scarce, and most humans struggle to adapt. Yet Tibetans thrive. Thanks to this genetic variant, it regulates the body's use of oxygen, preventing the harmful effects of thin air. Here, Denisovans continue to shape human survival long after their disappearance. The genome also revealed contact with Neanderthals. Evidence of shared DNA indicated repeated interbreeding. Later, another discovery confirmed this directly. The remains of a girl with a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father, found in Denisova Cave. She lived more than 50,000 years ago and represents the clearest evidence of a first-generation hybrid. Her existence shows that human groups did not live in isolation. They met, formed families, and shared genes, weaving a network of connections across Ice Age Eurasia. A lesser-known finding is that Denisovans were not a single, uniform population. Studies of their DNA suggest at least 3 distinct groups. One contributed ancestry to Oceania, another influenced East Asians, and a third affected South Asians. This diversity implies Denisovans spread widely, adapting to environments from Siberian steppes to tropical islands and high-altitude plateaus, yet physical remains are scarce. Beyond Denisova Cave, only a jawbone from Tibet, dated to more than 160,000 years ago, has been confirmed as Denisovan. The scarcity of fossils makes their genome the main source of knowledge. Sequencing ancient DNA requires painstaking care. Samples are easily contaminated by modern DNA, even from a single touch. Laboratories operate under strict, sterile conditions. Researchers wear protective suits, working in filtered rooms. From the finger bone, only a small amount of powder was drilled. Millions of fragments of DNA were then sequenced, and computers reassembled them into a coherent genome. The process was like reconstructing a vast puzzle from tiny pieces. The result gave Denisovans a voice across time. Still, questions remain. Why are Denisovan fossils so few compared with Neanderthals? Did they live in regions where preservation was poor? or have their sites simply not been discovered yet. Genetic evidence suggests they were widespread, but bones are almost absent. This remains one of the great puzzles of human origins. A people whose DNA shaped millions left behind only fragments of bone and tooth. From a planetary perspective, their discovery shows how much of human history lies hidden. Ice Age cycles buried valleys and drowned coastlines. Most evidence has been erased. Fossils are rare survivors of chance. DNA, when preserved, extends our reach beyond bones, revealing lineages invisible to archaeology. Denisovans remind us that the human story is not simple, but braided, with streams of ancestry diverging and rejoining through time. Denisovan DNA also shaped human adaptation beyond altitude. Some genes inherited from them improve immune responses, helping modern humans resist disease. In new environments, such advantages could be crucial. Natural selection preserved these genes, ensuring Denisovan DNA endures. This explains why fragments of their genome remain widespread, even though the people themselves vanished. The Denisovan genome also refines the timeline of human evolution. By comparing sequences, scientists estimate divergence times and interbreeding events. Instead of a simple branching tree, the picture resembles a braided river. Lineages split, crossed, and rejoined. Denisovans were one of those streams, merging with Neanderthals and modern humans before fading from view. Their genetic legacy is a reminder that humanity has never been a single path, but a web of interconnected lineages. At Denisova Cave, even sediments without bones have yielded traces of their DNA. Soil samples confirmed their presence in layers where no skeletal remains were found. This shows they occupied the cave repeatedly across long spans of time. Other caves across Asia may hold similar evidence, waiting for detection. As techniques advance, more secrets may be uncovered, not only from bones, but also from soil itself. The unlocking of Denisovan DNA transformed our view of prehistory. Once, the story of Eurasia seemed to involve only Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Now, a third lineage is recognized, one that contributed directly to the genomes of living people. Their story was written in code rather than in bone. It demonstrates that much of our history remains hidden, waiting to be revealed by science. From a finger bone no larger than a coin, an entire people emerged. Their DNA told of migrations across Asia, of adaptations to extreme environments, and of encounters with other humans. Though Denisovans disappeared tens of thousands of years ago, their genes remain within us. In the breathing of Tibetans at high altitude, in the genomes of islanders across the Pacific, the Denisovans still endure, a people once unknown, unlocked by DNA, now recognized as part of the shared human story. When the Denisovan genome was first published in 2010, it did more than reveal a lost people. It reshaped the understanding of human ancestry. For decades, the story of our origins was told through bones and artifacts. Fossils gave form, and tools gave hints of behavior. But genomes added another dimension, invisible yet powerful. In DNA, the past is inscribed. Every sequence carries echoes of migrations, encounters, and adaptations. For Denisovans, whose bones are scarce, genomes became their biography. Genomic analysis compares ancient DNA to that of living people. Each comparison reveals points of similarity and difference, which can be translated into timelines of divergence. Denisovan DNA showed they split from Neanderthals after leaving the lineage that gave rise to Homo sapiens, and that split likely occurred between 400,000 and 500,000 years ago. Neanderthals moved west. Denisovans expanded east. Modern humans remained in Africa until about 70,000 years ago, when they began to spread outward. The meeting of these lineages was written not in artifacts, but in genetic code. One of the most remarkable insights is that many modern populations carry Denisovan DNA. In Oceania, especially in Papua New Guinea and Melanesia, the proportion is highest, up to 6%. In the Philippines, indigenous groups also carry significant Denisovan ancestry. Smaller but measurable amounts appear across East and South Asia. These distributions show that Homo sapiens encountered Denisovans multiple times in different regions, leaving overlapping patterns of ancestry. The past encounters are silent in bones but unmistakable in genomes. The genetic legacy is not uniform. Some Denisovan DNA in Oceania is distinct from the Denisovan DNA found in East Asia. This suggests Denisovans themselves were not a single population, but a collection of branches. One group may have lived in Southeast Asia, another in Siberia, and yet another on the Tibetan plateau. Genetic evidence points to at least 3 separate Denisovan populations, each contributing differently to modern people. This diversity is striking, given the near absence of fossils. A famous case is the gene EPAS1 linked to life at high altitude. Tibetans carry a Denisovan-derived version of this gene, which helps regulate hemoglobin and oxygen use. Without it, life above 4,000 meters causes chronic stress on the body. With it, Tibetans thrive in the thin air of the plateau. This adaptation is one of the clearest examples of ancient DNA shaping modern survival. It shows how genetic inheritance can preserve the advantages of vanished populations. Other Denisovan contributions involve immunity. Certain variants in modern humans, inherited from Denisovans, enhance resistance to pathogens. In new environments, these variants likely provided survival benefits. Natural selection favored them, ensuring they persisted long after Denisovans disappeared. This is why fragments of their DNA remain widespread. They were useful, and usefulness kept them alive in us. Genomes also reveal complex interbreeding. Denisovans and Neanderthals exchanged genes. Denisovans and Homo sapiens did the same. The girl with a Neanderthal mother and Denisovan father, discovered in Denisova Cave, is the most direct evidence of such connections. Her genome embodies what the broader data already showed. Human history is not cleanly divided. Instead of isolated branches, lineages interwove repeatedly. The genetic record is a tapestry of crossings and recrossings. A lesser-known detail lies in the timing of these encounters. Analyses suggest that Denisovan admixture with modern humans occurred more than once, separated by tens of thousands of years. One event likely happened as Homo sapiens moved through Southeast Asia. Another may have occurred farther north, perhaps near Siberia. These repeated episodes show that Denisovans were not a small, local group. They were widespread, encountered at multiple points along the journeys of early modern humans. From a planetary perspective, genomes also reveal how humans adapted to shifting Ice Age environment. Denisovan DNA entered modern populations at times when climates were unstable. Glaciers expanded and retreated, sea levels rose and fell, forests spread and contracted. In such settings, genetic exchanges provided tools for survival. Adaptations to pathogens, climates, and altitudes spread not only through innovation, but through inheritance from cousins. Genomes record these adaptations as clearly as fossils record bones. Yet, mysteries persist. Why do Denisovan contributions appear strongly in Oceania and Southeast Asia but weakly in Europe? Did Denisovans never reach that far west, or were they replaced before contact? Why are their fossils so scarce, while their DNA is widespread? The genetic record is strong, but the physical record remains thin. These gaps are reminders that every genome raises as many questions as it answers. The Denisovan genome also provides calibration for evolutionary timelines. By measuring the number of differences between sequences, scientists can estimate when lineages diverged. The Denisovan data refine these estimates, showing that the separation between Neanderthals and Denisovans occurred earlier than once thought. It also shows that Denisovans survived in Asia until at least 50,000 years ago, overlapping not only with Neanderthals, but with incoming Homo sapiens. Their disappearance was therefore not due to timing alone, but to complex interactions with climate, ecology, and other human groups. In addition, Denisovan DNA challenges the idea of species boundaries. Traditional definitions rely on reproductive isolation, yet Denisovans, Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens all interbred, leaving fertile offspring. The genetic evidence suggests they were not completely separate species, but closely related populations capable of exchange. This insight reshapes how scientists think about human evolution, less as a tree with distinct branches, more as a braided stream where currents separate and reunite. A lesser-known example of Denisovan legacy involves the immune gene HLA-B. Certain variants common in Oceania today likely came from Denisovans. These variants help recognize a wider range of pathogens, broadening immune defense. Such contributions may have been essential as Homo sapiens entered new environments filled with unfamiliar diseases. Again, natural selection preserved what was useful, integrating Denisovan heritage into modern biology. Today, researchers continue to refine the picture. Genomes from living populations are compared with ancient sequences, revealing ever more detail. Soil samples from Denisova Cave and other sites provide fragments of DNA even when bones are missing. Each new discovery sharpens the image of Denisovans, though many parts remain blurred. Their ancestry is written not in artifacts or monuments, but in molecules that endure across millennia. The story of Denisovan DNA is also a reminder of fragility. Fossils are rare, easily lost to erosion, burial, or rising seas. Genetic material is even more delicate, surviving only in the best of conditions. That the Denisovan genome was preserved at all is a matter of chance. Without it, we might never have known they existed. Their legacy, however, lies not only in a cave, but in the bodies of people alive today, carrying fragments of their genome in every cell. From a small bone fragment less than the size of a child's finger, an entire lineage emerged. Their DNA revealed migrations across Asia, adaptations to high altitudes, and repeated encounters with other humans. Though Denisovans left few visible remains, their genetic heritage is inscribed in millions. Ancestry is written in genomes, and through those genomes, Denisovans remain part of the living human story. High on the Tibetan plateau, the air is thin. At elevations above 4,000 meters, oxygen is scarce, and the body of most humans struggles to cope. Breathing quickens, the heart strains, and prolonged exposure can cause illness or even death. Yet for thousands of years, Tibetan peoples have lived and thrived at these altitudes. Their resilience is written in their DNA, and part of that legacy comes from Denisovans, the lost cousins revealed through a cave in Siberia. The Tibetan plateau is sometimes called the roof of the world. It stretches for thousands of kilometers, bounded by the Himalayas to the south and vast deserts to the north. Cold winds sweep across its plains. Winters are harsh, with temperatures plunging below freezing. Summers are short and cool. The landscape is dominated by grasslands, salt lakes, and snow-fed rivers. Despite the challenges, the plateau has been home to pastoralists, farmers, and traders for millennia. Their survival depends on adaptations both cultural and biological. One of the most remarkable adaptations lies in the gene EPAS1. This gene helps regulate the body's response to low oxygen levels. Most humans living at sea level produce more hemoglobin at high altitudes, thickening the blood to carry oxygen. But this reaction can be harmful, leading to heart and lung strain. Tibetans, however, respond differently. Their version of EPAS1 prevents excessive hemoglobin buildup, allowing them to function efficiently in thin air. Genetic studies show that this beneficial variant was inherited from Denisovans. This discovery highlights how Denisovans continue to influence modern humans. Long ago, when Homo sapiens spread across Asia, they encountered Denisovans and interbred. Some of the Denisovan DNA carried useful adaptations. Natural selection preserved these traits, especially in regions where they provided survival advantages. On the Tibetan plateau, the EPAS1 variant proved vital. Without it, life at such altitudes would have been far more difficult. With it, populations could settle permanently in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The Denisovan connection was confirmed when researchers sequenced the DNA of Tibetans and compared it with the Denisovan genome. The match was clear. The EPAS1 variant in Tibetans is almost identical to the Denisovan version and distinct from versions found in other humans. This provided direct evidence that interbreeding with Denisovans gave modern humans the tools to thrive at high elevations. It is one of the most compelling examples of genetic inheritance shaping adaptation. A lesser-known detail comes from the fossil record of the plateau. In 2019, scientists announced the discovery of a Denisovan jawbone in Baishia Karst Cave on the northeastern edge of the plateau. The jaw, though more than 160,000 years old, belonged to a Denisovan individual who lived at high altitude long before modern humans arrived. Protein analysis confirmed its Denisovan origin. This fossil shows that Denisovans had already adapted to life in thin air, perhaps passing down the EPAS1 variant through generations. It also reveals that Denisovans ranged far beyond Siberia, inhabiting the highlands of Central Asia. The presence of Denisovans in Tibet raises questions. How widespread were they across Asia? Did they live mainly in mountainous regions, or did they occupy lowlands as well? The fossil record is sparse, so answers remain uncertain. But genetic evidence suggests Denisovans were diverse, with multiple branches across the continent. The Tibetan jawbone adds a crucial piece, showing that at least one group was specialized for life in extreme altitudes. From a planetary perspective, Tibetan Plateau is unique. It is the largest and highest plateau on Earth, shaped by the collision of tectonic plates. Glaciers cover its peaks, and rivers flowing from it feed much of Asia. During the Ice Age, climates shifted dramatically here. Cold winds strengthened, glaciers expanded and retreated, and ecosystems transformed. Through it all, Denisovans endured, leaving behind traces in bone and in DNA. Their presence in such a demanding landscape is a reminder of human resilience. The Denisovan legacy in Tibet also reflects the broader theme of genetic exchange. Adaptations do not arise only from mutation within a single population. They can also spread through contact and interbreeding. When Homo sapiens encountered Denisovans, they inherited not only fragments of DNA but also the survival strategies encoded in that DNA. In the case of EPAS-1, this inheritance made the difference between hardship and sustainability on the plateau. It shows how interconnected human history is, shaped by encounters that left lasting marks in genomes. Yet mysteries remain. Did Denisovans live permanently at high altitude, or did they move seasonally between lowlands and mountains? How many generations passed before the EPAS-1 variant became fixed in their population? Were they the first humans to settle the plateau? Long before modern Tibetans arrived, the answers are not yet clear. Archaeological work in the region continues, but sites are few, and preservation is difficult in harsh alpine conditions. Each new discovery could shift the picture. Another question concerns the timing of genetic transfer. When exactly did Homo sapiens acquire the Denisovan EPAS-1 variant? Was it during early migrations into Central Asia, or later, as groups moved into the plateau? Current estimates suggest the exchange happened more than 40,000 years ago, but the details are debated. What is clear is that without this Denisovan inheritance, permanent life at such heights would have been far harder to achieve. A lesser-known aspect of the Tibetan fossil is its context. The jawbone was found by a monk decades ago and preserved in a monastery before scientists examined it. Its discovery outside Siberia confirmed what genomes had long suggested. Denisovans were not confined to a single cave in the Altai, but were widespread. They were a continental people, inhabiting environments from valleys to high peaks. Each find adds to the growing recognition that Denisovans were diverse, adaptable, and deeply influential in human history. For Tibetans today, the Denisovan connection is invisible in daily life, yet every breath they take at high altitude carries the imprint of this ancient legacy. Their blood chemistry, their resilience to thin air, is part of a story that began long before their own lineage reached the plateau. It is a reminder that the past is never entirely gone. It lives on, written in genes, shaping bodies for environments that demand adaptation. From a broader view, the Denisovan contribution in Tibet exemplifies how human survival has always depended on exchange. No lineage stood alone. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans all met, mingled, and shared. What endures is not only bones or tools, but inherited resilience. On the roof of the world, that resilience is measured in heartbeats steady at high altitude, and in lives lived where oxygen is scarce. The story of Denisovans in the high mountains shows how small fragments of evidence, a gene in modern Tibetans, a jawbone in a cave, can transform understanding of the past. Together, they reveal a lineage once hidden, still present in the breath of those who walk the plateau. The Denisovans may be gone, but their legacy continues, etched into the genomes of people who live today above the clouds. The world of the Denisovans was shaped by cold. For much of their existence, the Pleistocene epoch ruled the climate. Ice sheets expanded over northern continents, locking away water and lowering sea levels. Vast areas of Eurasia became open grassland, cold steppes stretching for thousands of kilometers. Winds blew hard across these plains, carrying dust, freezing the air, and making survival a challenge for every living thing. It was within this harsh frontier that Denisovans thrived. The steppe of Ice Age Siberia was unlike the grasslands of today. It was richer in species, known as the mammoth steppe. This ecosystem stretched from Western Europe to North America, forming one of the largest biomes of its time. Herds of woolly mammoth, steppe bison, horse, and reindeer moved across it. Predators such as cave lions, wolves, hyenas followed. For humans, this land offered both danger and opportunity. Food was abundant, but winters were brutal. Only those with skill, resilience, and cooperation could endure. Denisovans were part of this world. Archaeological evidence from Denisova Cave shows they used stone tools well suited to processing animal hides and bones. Large flakes and blades, struck from carefully prepared cores, indicate planning and skill. Hearths within the cave reveal that they relied on fire to survive long winters. Burned bones suggest meat roasting in the glow of flames, a vital source of calories in a frozen land. The cold steppe tested them constantly, yet they adapted. From a planetary perspective, the steppe was linked directly to climate. As glaciers grew, forests retreated, opening new grasslands. When ice retreated during interglacial periods, trees returned and the steppe shrank. These cycles repeated many times, reshaping habitats again and again. For Denisovans, survival meant adjusting to these rhythms. They likely followed herds as ranges shifted, moving across valleys and rivers to find game. Their presence in Siberia shows remarkable resilience, for few humans could endure such cold. A lesser-known detail of steppe life comes from animal remains found in Denisova Cave. Among the bones are those of woolly rhinoceros and cave bear. Some show cut marks from stone blades, signs of butchery. Others were burned in hearths. This suggests Denisovans not only hunted but also scavenged large animals, making full use of the resources available. In an environment where calories meant survival, every part of an animal was valuable: meat, marrow, hide, sinew, and bone. The steppe frontier also shaped contact between human groups. Neanderthals ranged across Western Eurasia. Modern humans arrived later from the south. Denisovans occupied the central and eastern parts of the steppe. Where these ranges overlapped, encounters occurred. The genetic evidence of interbreeding shows that steppe corridors were not barriers, but meeting grounds. The openness of the landscape allowed movement across great distances, linking populations that might otherwise have remained isolated. The challenges of the steppe required more than physical endurance. Clothing was essential. The discovery of a Denisovan bone needle, one of the oldest known, suggests they stitched hides into garments. Such clothing would have been critical against wind and frost. Fire, clothing, and shelter formed a triad of survival strategies. Without them, the cold would have been fatal. The presence of a needle shows not only survival, but also ingenuity, a quiet testament to Denisovan's skill. Yet mysteries remain. How did Denisovans organize their lives on the steppe? Did they form small, mobile groups following herds, or did they establish seasonal camps in caves and valleys? The archaeological record is thin, offering only glimpses. No settlements have been found beyond a few cave sites. Perhaps their camps on open ground were lost to erosion or buried beneath sediments carried by Ice Age winds. The absence of evidence leaves much unknown. From a broader perspective, the cold steppe shaped migrations on a continental scale. Lower sea levels exposed land bridges connecting Siberia to lands farther east. The mammoth steppe stretched into what is now Alaska, forming a corridor across Beringia. Denisovans may never have crossed that far, but the steppe created possibilities for movement that influenced many human groups. It was a land of openness, linking regions otherwise divided by ice and sea. For Denisovan, the steppe was both harsh and generous. It offered vast herds, but also long winters when snow covered the grass and animals migrated away. Surviving those seasons required planning. Food may have been stored, hides prepared, and groups gathered around fires to wait for spring. Archaeological traces suggest cycles of use, periods when caves were filled with activity, and periods when they lay empty, abandoned during harsher climates. A lesser-known observation comes from pollen preserved in cave sediments. These microscopic grains record vegetation changes over time. In layers linked to Denisovan occupation, pollen reveals open grassland conditions with few trees. This confirms that Denisovans lived during some of the coldest phases of the Ice Age, enduring steppe environments where forests had retreated far to the south. Such evidence highlights their adaptability to extreme climates. The cold steppe frontier also raises questions about communication and culture. Did Denisovans share knowledge with neighboring groups? The similarity of stone tools across wide regions suggests ideas traveled. Interbreeding shows that people did as well. The steppe was not empty. It was a vast, shifting stage where humans and animals moved, interacted, and adapted. Denisovans were part of this network, shaping and being shaped by the world around them. From a planetary scale, the mammoth steppe was one of Earth's great ecosystems, covering more land than any modern biome. It was resilient across cycles of glaciation, yet it has no true equivalent today. When the Ice Age ended and climates warmed, the mammoth steppe disappeared. Forests spread, and many of its animals vanished. Denisovans too disappeared, leaving only fragments in caves and traces in DNA. Their story is inseparable from the story of the steppe, a people of the cold frontier, vanishing as the climate changed. Today, the Altai still feel the breath of the steppe. Cold winds sweep across valleys, grasses ripple in summer, snow blankets them in winter. Denisova Cave remains a witness, holding fragments of bone and ash. From these remains, the presence of Denisovans is traced, their resilience inferred, though little survives. What does shows their ability to endure one of the harshest landscapes humans have ever faced. The cold steppe frontier reminds us that human history was forged not only in fertile valleys and warm coasts, but also in environments of scarcity and cold. Denisovans lived in such places, adapting with fire, clothing, and ingenuity. Their legacy, though faint, shows that survival on the steppe was possible, even for tens of thousands of years. In their endurance, we see another face of humanity, shaped by the winds of the Ice Age. During the Ice Age, water was locked in glaciers that spread across the northern continents. Vast ice sheets covered much of North America, northern Europe, and Siberia. As a result, sea levels fell dramatically, sometimes more than 100 meters lower than today. This lowering of the oceans exposed wide coastal plains, reshaping the geography of the world. For humans, including Denisovans, these changes opened new paths of migration. A different map of continents and islands existed, one that no longer survives but once guided their movements. When sea levels fell, new lands appeared along coasts. In Southeast Asia, the Sunda Shelf was exposed, connecting many islands into a single landmass. Sumatra, Java, and Borneo were joined to the Asian mainland. To the east, the Sahul Shelf connected Australia to New Guinea and Tasmania. These expanded shores created opportunities for animals and humans to spread across regions that are now separated by sea. The Ice Age world was not only colder, it was larger, with coastlines stretched far outward. For Denisovans, these shifting landscapes may have been crucial. Their DNA appears strongly in modern populations of Oceania and parts of Southeast Asia. This suggests they moved far beyond Siberia, reaching southern regions during times of low sea. The land bridges of Sunda and Sahul provided stepping stones. Even if Denisovans never reached Australia themselves, their genetic traces in modern islanders show that they mingled with humans who later crossed into Sahul. Without lowered seas, such journeys would have been far more difficult. From a planetary perspective, the rhythm of sea level change was constant. Glacial periods locked water into ice sheets, lowering seas for tens of thousands of years. Interglacial periods melted ice, raising seas again. These cycles repeated again and again. Each cycle reshaped human possibilities. What was once open plain became seabed. What was once coastline was drowned. For Denisovans, as for other humans, survival meant adapting not only to climate but to geography itself. A lesser-known detail comes from archaeological finds far from Siberia. In the highlands of Papua New Guinea, genetic studies reveal Denisovan ancestry among local populations. These regions are now separated from Asia by wide seas. But during the Ice Age, the distance was smaller. Even so, reaching them required some capacity for crossing water. Whether Denisovans themselves made the crossings or passed their DNA to modern humans who did, the evidence shows that their influence extended deep into island worlds. The expanding shores also affected animal migrations. Mammoths, bison, and other large mammals moved across plains that no longer exist. Humans followed, tracking herds into new territories. Along coasts, shellfish and marine resources became available on exposed shorelines. Such resources may have supported groups moving into unfamiliar environments. The ability to exploit new habitats was essential for survival. Denisovans, like other humans, had to adjust their strategies as the land itself changed shape. Yet mysteries remain. Did Denisovans themselves venture into island Southeast Asia? Or did they pass their genes through populations that carried them farther? No Denisovan fossils have been found south of Tibet. Only their DNA in modern peoples suggests their range extended so far. Some researchers argue they may have occupied forests of Southeast Asia, where preservation is poor. Others think their main range lay in northern Asia, with gene flow occurring through contact zones. The truth is still uncertain. One remarkable planetary observation is that during the peak of glaciation, coastlines extended hundreds of kilometers farther than today. Rivers flowed across plains now drowned beneath seas, where modern harbors and islands lie. Once there were grasslands and valleys. If Denisovans lived along these shores, their camps and tools are now underwater, hidden beneath layers of silt. The drowned landscapes of Sunda and Sahul may hold answers to their movements, waiting to be explored by underwater archaeology. Another layer of complexity comes from interbreeding. As modern humans expanded out of Africa and across Asia, they met Denisovans in multiple places. Each meeting left a genetic imprint. Some encounters likely happened in northern regions, such as Siberia. Others may have taken place in Southeast Asia, near the coasts of Sunda. These encounters show that Denisovans were not confined to one region. Their legacy was written across a vast geography, from mountains to islands, from steppe to forest. The idea of expanding shores also highlights the fragility of evidence. Much of the archaeological record is now lost beneath rising seas. Sites that once marked the presence of Denisovans or early modern humans may lie deep underwater. This absence explains why fossils are scarce in Southeast Asia, even though genetic evidence is strong. The drowned coasts remind us that much of human history remains inaccessible, erased by the return of the oceans after the Ice Age. A lesser-known insight comes from studies of coral reefs. Ancient reef terraces record sea levels across millennia. These natural markers confirm the cycles of expansion and retreat. By comparing reef data with genetic timelines, scientists can align human migrations with changing shorelines. For Denisovans, the periods of lowest sea level match the times when genetic exchanges likely occurred. The rhythm of Earth itself set the stage for human encounters. The expanding world of the Ice Age was therefore both opportunity and risk. Open plains allowed migration, but rising seas erased records. Denisovans lived within these cycles, adapting to each change. Their DNA shows they were part of networks of movement stretching across continents and islands. Though we cannot yet trace their exact paths, their legacy in modern populations proves that they were there, moving along shores that no longer exist. Today, the world looks different. Seas have risen, covering the plains of Sunda and Sahul. What were once land routes are now oceans dotted with islands. The human story written on those coasts has largely vanished. Yet in DNA, the memory endures. Modern islanders carry Denisovan ancestry, a living record of encounters made possible by expanding shores. From a small cave in Siberia to islands thousands of kilometers away, the Denisovans' influence spread. They adapted to cold steppes, to high mountains, and perhaps to tropical forests and coasts. Their presence reminds us that human history was never fixed to one place. It followed the rhythms of Earth, shaped by glaciers and seas. In the world of expanding shores, Denisovans left a legacy still carried in the genomes of people alive today. Stone, bone, and ivory were the raw materials of Denisovan technology. Unlike DNA, which survives only in rare conditions, tools endure in soil and sediment. They provide a record of skill, adaptation, and daily life. In Denisova Cave and other sites linked to their presence, the objects left behind offer glimpses of how these lost cousins worked, survived, and expressed themselves. Archaeologists have recovered thousands of stone artifacts from Denisova Cave. The oldest belong to the Middle Paleolithic tradition, shaped by striking flakes from prepared cores. These flakes served as knives, scrapers, and cutting edges. Later layers contain long blades, carefully removed from cores with precision. Some were retouched to sharpen or reshape them. These tools show planning and standardization, evidence of knowledge passed down through generations. Bone tools also appear. Among them is one of the oldest known sewing needles, carved with an eye to hold thread. This needle, made of bird bone, speaks volumes. It suggests the Denisovans stitched hides into garments, essential for survival in Siberia's freezing winters. The ability to sew transformed raw hides into fitted clothing, offering warmth and mobility. Few artifacts are as evocative as this simple needle, a silent testimony to ingenuity. Ivory ornaments add another layer. Beads and pendants made from mammoth tusk or animal bone reveal symbolic expression. They may have been worn as necklaces or attached to clothing. The making of ornaments implies more than function. It suggests meaning. whether as decoration, identity, or ritual. These items show that Denisovans engaged in symbolic behavior once thought unique to modern humans. The cave, therefore, holds evidence not only of survival, but also of culture. A lesser-known detail is the discovery of a polished green stone bracelet in Denisova cave. The bracelet, carefully drilled and shaped, is extraordinary for its age. Its surface is smooth, and the whole appears to have been made with a rotating tool. This level of craftsmanship suggests remarkable skill, perhaps even techniques once thought to belong only to later humans. The bracelet raises questions. Were Denisovans more technologically advanced than previously believed? Or does it reflect interaction with other groups? Its mystery remains unsolved. The tools also reflect adaptation to environment. On the cold steppe, hides and meat from large animals were essential. Scrapers for hide preparation are common in the cave, showing the importance of clothing. Blades for butchery are found alongside bones of horse, bison, and reindeer. Fireplaces filled with ash and charred bone suggest regular use of fire to cook food and warm shelters. Each tool fits into a pattern of survival strategies finely tuned to Ice Age Siberia. From a planetary perspective, the spread of similar tool types across Eurasia shows how ideas traveled. Denisovan tools resemble some used by Neanderthals, raising questions about cultural exchange. Did they share techniques when they met? Or did similar environments produce similar solutions independently? The convergence of tool traditions highlights how different human groups faced the same challenges and sometimes arrived at comparable answers. Another mystery lies in the absence of clear Denisovan tool traditions outside Siberia. Genetic evidence shows they were widespread, yet tools directly linked to them are rare. This could be because their tools resembled those of Neanderthals or early modern humans, making attribution difficult. Without fossils directly associated with artifacts, archaeologists cannot always say which group made what. This uncertainty means much of Denisovan technology remains hidden in plain sight, unrecognized among broader Paleolithic collections. A lesser-known aspect of Denisovan archaeology is the microscopic study of wear on tools. Under magnification, edges reveal patterns of use, scraping hides, cutting meat, shaping wood. Such analysis shows Denisovan tools were multi-purpose, used for daily tasks of hunting, clothing, and shelter construction. These small traces confirm that Denisovan life was as practical and varied as that of their cousins. Symbolic artifacts stand out because they cross the boundary from function to meaning. Beads, pendants, and the polished bracelet suggest Denisovans valued more than utility. They engaged in acts of creation not strictly tied to survival. This capacity reflects cognitive abilities once considered unique to modern humans. It expands the understanding of what it meant to be human during the Ice Age. Denisovans were not silent figures in caves, they were creators with their own expressions. From a broader view, the tools also show how fragile evidence is. Many artifacts were likely made from wood or other perishable materials long since decayed. What survives is only stone, bone, and ivory, the most durable parts of a larger toolkit. The Denisovans may have built structures, carved wood, or woven fibers, but these activities left little trace. The visible record is only a fragment of their true technological world. The distribution of ornaments in Denisova cave adds further intrigue. Some beads are found in layers associated with Denisovans, others in layers with Neanderthals or modern humans. This overlap raises questions about cultural interaction. Did they exchange ornaments? Did ideas spread between groups? The possibility of shared traditions shows that symbolic expression was not confined to a single lineage, but part of a broader human capacity. Another planetary scale observation is that tools allowed humans to expand into environments far beyond the reach of other species. Without clothing and fire, Siberia would have been uninhabitable. With them, Denisovans occupied one of the coldest regions on Earth. Their survival demonstrates the power of technology as a form of adaptation. Where physical evolution was slow, cultural innovation provided flexibility. Tools extended the reach of humanity into frontiers once closed. Yet, despite these insights, mysteries remain. How much of Denisovan technology was their own, and how much came from contact with others? Did they invent ornaments independently, or learn from neighbors? Were their tools uniform across Asia, or did regional variations exist? Without more sites, answers remain elusive. The bracelet and needle are tantalizing clues, but they are not the whole picture. Today, the artifacts from Denisova Cave are preserved in museums and laboratories. Each piece, no matter how small, adds to the mosaic of Denisovan life. A flake of stone speaks of a single strike. A bead reflects hours of careful work. A needle holds the memory of stitches pulled through hide. Together they remind us that Denisovans were not shadows, but skilled humans, shaping the world with their hands. The tools they left behind tell us more than their bones. They show a people adapting to climate, mastering fire and clothing, and expressing themselves in ornaments. They show ingenuity in survival and creativity in culture. Though Denisovans are gone, their artifacts endure. Silent, yet eloquent witnesses to their lives on the cold steppes and in the mountain caves of Asia. The discovery of Denisovan DNA did more than reveal a hidden lineage. It also exposed a web of connections. Genomes showed that Denisovans did not live in isolation. They met and interbred with other humans, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens alike. These encounters left traces in modern genomes, shadows of ancient unions written in our DNA. The clearest evidence comes from Denisova Cave itself. Among the tiny fragments recovered was the bone of a girl who lived more than 50,000 years ago. When sequenced, her genome revealed an extraordinary story. Her mother was Neanderthal. Her father was Denisovan. She was a first-generation hybrid. This was not a distant echo of interbreeding, but a direct child of two different human groups. The find confirmed what genetic comparisons had already suggested. Encounters between lineages were real, and they sometimes resulted in families. This girl, often called Denny in scientific literature, provides the most tangible proof of interbreeding. Her genome even showed that her Denisovan father had Neanderthal ancestry from generations before. This suggests repeated contact over long spans of time. Denisovans and Neanderthals overlapped not only in place but also in bloodlines, their histories intertwined across millennia. Modern humans need to carry evidence of contact. As Homo sapiens expanded out of Africa and into Asia, they met Denisovans. Each meeting left genetic marks. Populations in Oceania and Southeast Asia carry the largest fractions of Denisovan DNA, up to 6%. Smaller traces are found in East and South Asia. These patterns show that encounters were widespread, occurring in multiple regions. The genetic legacy of Denisovans survives in millions today, long after their bones disappeared. A lesser-known detail lies in the differences between Denisovan contributions. The Denisovan DNA in Oceania is not identical to that found in East Asia. Instead, it reflects at least two separate Denisovan populations. One branch mixed with ancestors of Oceanians, another with populations in northern Asia. This indicates Denisovans were diverse and widespread, with multiple groups interacting with modern humans at different times. Interbreeding was not a single event, but a series of encounters across continents. From a planetary perspective, these genetic exchanges mirror the broader rhythms of Ice Age environments. Glacial cycles opened and closed migration routes. As climates cooled, grasslands expanded, connecting regions. As climates warmed, forests and rivers formed barriers. Within these shifting landscapes, human groups moved, met, and mingled. Interbreeding was part of this dynamic, a natural outcome of populations sharing space in a changing world. The Denisovan-Neanderthal connection remains one of the most intriguing. Genetic evidence shows they diverged hundreds of thousands of years ago, yet they continued to interact. The hybrid girl proves direct unions, but other genomes reveal subtler traces. Denisovans carry Neanderthal ancestry, and Neanderthals carry Denisovan ancestry. These crossings blur the line between them. They were distinct, yet not completely separate. Their ability to produce fertile offspring challenges rigid definitions of species. Humanity, it seems, has always been interconnected. Mysteries remain. How often did interbreeding occur? Was it rare, limited to occasional meetings, or was it more common? The fossil record is too thin to say. Genomes provide snapshot, not full stories. A few individuals show clear evidence, but the scale of contact remains uncertain. What is certain is that genes flowed between groups, altering their histories forever. Another question concerns culture. Did interbreeding occur within shared communities, with groups living together for seasons or years? Or did it happen in brief encounters during migrations? Archaeology offers little clarity. Tools and ornaments from Denisova cave resemble those of Neanderthals and modern humans, suggesting shared ideas. Whether these similarities came from exchange, imitation, or parallel invention is unknown. Yet the blending of genes hints that the blending of cultures may also have occurred. A lesser-known observation is that interbreeding provided advantages. Some Denisovan genes helped modern humans adapt to high altitude and resist pathogens. Without such genetic gifts, survival in new environments would have been harder. This suggests that interbreeding was not merely incidental, but shaped the success of Homo sapiens as they spread across the globe. Denisovans contributed more than fragments of DNA, they contributed survival strategies encoded in genes. From a wider view, the shadows of interbreeding reveal that human evolution was not linear. It was not a simple succession of one species replacing another. Instead, it was a braided stream of populations meeting, mixing, and sometimes merging. Denisovans, Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens were branches of the same tree, but their roots and branches intertwined. The record of their crossings is preserved not in bones, but in the genomes of people alive today. Planetary changes framed these encounters. During glacial maxima, populations retreated to refuges. During warmer periods, they expanded outward, meeting others. Denisova Cave itself was one of these refuges, occupied by different groups at different times. The hybrid girl is a reminder that caves were not only shelters from the cold, but also places where lineages met. Her life, though short and silent in the record, embodies the merging of two human worlds. Still, there is more to uncover. fossils are scarce. Denisovan remains are limited to a handful of bones and teeth. Neanderthals are better known, but gaps remain. Modern human fossils in Asia are also sparse. Without more evidence, many questions about the scale and nature of interbreeding remain unanswered. Genomes fill some gap, but they cannot reveal everything. Archaeology and genetics must work together to build the picture. Today, scientists continue to search for clues, soil sample, bone fragments, and advances in DNA sequencing all add detail. Each new find sharpens the image of how Denisovans connected with others. What emerges is a story of humanity as a web, not a line. Denisovans may have vanished as a distinct group, but their DNA ensures they remain part of us. Every heartbeat at high altitude, every immune response shaped by ancient genes, carries their legacy. The shadows of interbreeding remind us that we are not alone in our ancestry. We are composites, shaped by encounters with others who once walked the earth. Denisovans are gone, Neanderthals are gone, but their bloodlines survive within us. In our genomes lie the traces of those meetings in caves, on steppes, and along ancient shores. They are reminders that human history is not a story of isolation, but of connection, written in genes across time. Genetic studies reveal something surprising. Denisovan DNA is found not only in Asia, but also in the islands of Oceania. Populations in New Guinea, the Philippines, and Melanesia carry the highest known percentages, up to 6% of their genomes. This discovery reshapes the map of Denisovan presence. It shows that their influence stretched far beyond Siberia, into tropical seas and archipelagos thousands of kilometers away. How did this happen? No Denisovan fossils have been found on these islands, yet the genes tell a clear story of contact. The most plausible explanation is that early modern humans, moving through Southeast Asia on their way to Australia and the Pacific, encountered Denisovans. Interbreeding occurred, and the genetic traces remain in their descendants today. The path of migration was long, spanning continents and oceans, but the imprint of Denisovans crossed with it, carried within human bloodlines. A lesser-known detail lies in the complexity of this inheritance. The Denisovan DNA in Oceania is not the same as the Denisovan DNA in East Asia. Instead, it comes from a distinct branch, genetically different from the Denisovans of Siberia. This suggests multiple Denisovan populations, scattered widely across Asia, each with their own histories. One population left its legacy in East Asia, another in Oceania. The pattern implies Denisovans were not confined to one region, but lived across a vast range, adapting to diverse environments. From a planetary perspective, the Ice Age world made such movements possible. Sea levels were lower by more than 100 meters, exposing vast areas of land. The islands of Southeast Asia, today separated by seas, were connected in larger land masses known as Sunda and Sahul. Narrow straits of water remained, but coastlines were closer and crossings were shorter. This created stepping stones for migration, linking Asia to Australia. Within this shifting geography, human groups moved, and encounters with Denisovans occurred. The mystery is where exactly these meetings took place. Fossil evidence is missing. No cave has yet yielded Denisovan bones in Southeast Asia. Some scholars suggest Denisovans occupied highlands of the region, perhaps in places like the Philippines or Indonesia. Others argue their range extended into southern China. Without bones, the picture remains uncertain. Yet the genetic signals are strong. They confirm that Denisovans, in some form, were present and mingled with travelers moving through these landscapes. Archaeological finds from the region hint at a deep human presence. Tools found on Flores Island suggest hominin activity for hundreds of thousands of years. On Luzon, fossils of Homo luzonensis add another branch to the tree. These discoveries reveal that Southeast Asia was home to multiple human groups. Denisovans may have been among them, one strand in a complex web of populations sharing the islands. Encounters with modern humans were therefore not improbable, but almost inevitable. A lesser-known clue comes from the Aita Magbucon people of the Philippines. Genetic studies show they carry some of the highest known levels of Denisovan ancestry, even higher than populations in Papua New Guinea. This discovery, published only recently, highlights how Denisovan legacy is uneven, concentrated in specific groups. It suggests that contact was local and repeated, occurring in particular places rather than everywhere at once. The Denisovan contribution to Oceania is not just a genetic curiosity. Some of their genes provide adaptive benefits. Variants influence immune response, helping populations resist tropical pathogens. Others may affect metabolism in humid environments. These advantages underline how interbreeding shaped survival in new lands. Denisovan DNA was not passive. It actively assisted modern humans in thriving across unfamiliar territories. From a wider view, these patterns illustrate the interconnectedness of early humans. The journey from Africa to Sahel required crossing deserts, rivers, and seas. Along the way, humans met Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps other hominins. Each meeting added layers to the genetic fabric. By the time populations reached New Guinea and Australia, they already carried within them legacies of ancient cousins. The islands preserved these signatures, isolated by seas that kept communities distinct for tens of thousands of years. Yet mysteries endure. Why are Denisovan signals stronger in Oceania than elsewhere? Did Denisovans themselves venture onto islands, or did modern humans encounter them on the mainland before carrying their DNA into the Pacific? Without fossils, answers remain speculative. Some researchers propose Denisovans may have mastered crossings of water, reaching parts of the island chains themselves. If true, this would expand their reputation as adaptable explorers, not confined to inland caves. Another planetary-scale observation is how changing seas reshaped possibilities. During glacial periods, Sahul, a landmass uniting Australia and New Guinea, was accessible by island hopping. But when glaciers melted and seas rose, coastlines retreated, and those routes vanished. Populations became isolated, preserving the Denisovan heritage within their genomes. The ocean, once a corridor, became a boundary. The rise and fall of water thus dictated the flow of human genes across regions. The story of Denisovan ancestry in Oceania reveals a hidden connection between Siberian caves and Pacific islands. It shows that human history is not limited by landscapes we can easily trace today. Genes preserve links across vast distances, reminding us of encounters now invisible. Denisovans, though few in fossil record, live on in the people of tropical archipelagos thousands of kilometers away from the Altai Mountains. From a broader perspective, this dispersal underscores the diversity of the human journey. Migration was never a straight path. It branched, paused, and blended. Denisovans were part of that flow, sometimes visible, often unseen, but always leaving traces. The people of Oceania are living archives of that hidden past, carrying within them a chapter of human history that fossils alone cannot tell. In the stillness of islands, under the sound of waves and wind, the Denisovan legacy endures. Though their bones are absent, their presence is written in the genomes of communities that trace back to the first crossings of the Pacific. The shadows of those meetings stretch across time, binding Siberian caves to island forests, linking distant worlds in the shared fabric of humanity. The Denisovans, known first from fragments deep within Denisova Cave, are no longer seen as a single, uniform people. Their story, as revealed by DNA, is instead a tale of branching lineages. What once appeared as one shadow on the edge of human history has unfolded into multiple strands, each diverging, adapting, and leaving its own trace in modern populations. The reference genome from the Altai Mountains was the first clear window. This DNA, extracted from a finger bone, allowed scientists to map the Denisovan place within the human family. Yet the more researchers compared it with the genetic legacy carried by modern people, the more they realized that something was unusual. Papuans and Aboriginal Australians carry Denisovan DNA that does not match the Siberian genome. The fragments are too different, pointing to a separate population that split from the Altai group hundreds of thousands of years earlier. East Asians, in turn, carry a different set of fragments again. The conclusion is striking. There were multiple branches of Denisovans, not just one. Across Asia, this pattern makes sense. The continent is vast, larger than Africa and Europe combined, shaped by deserts, rivers, mountains, and glaciers. For hominins moving on foot, these barriers could mean lifetimes of separation. Once isolated, groups followed different paths. Over thousands of years, they adapted to their own environments. In the icy north, survival demanded one kind of resilience. In the tropics, another. Denisovan diversity reflects the immensity of Asia itself. A lesser-known finding is how deep the divergence was. The Denisovan DNA in Oceania is almost as distant from the Siberian lineage as Neanderthals are. This means that under the single label Denisovan we may be hiding what were, in effect, several distinct populations. Their common ancestor was real, but the distance between branches was immense. The Altai bones represent just one piece of a much larger web. The mystery, however, lies in the ground. Fossils are rare. Beyond Siberia and one jawbone on the Tibetan plateau, no confirmed Denisovan remains have been found. And yet, Papuans carry about 5% Denisovan DNA. They must have met a group somewhere on their ancestors' migration routes into the Pacific. Where those meetings occurred remains unknown. The tropical forests and islands that might hold clues are poor places for fossil preservation. Bones decay quickly in heat and humidity. Whole populations may have vanished without leaving a trace except in living genomes. Planetary rhythms also shape this branching. Ice Age cycles saw glaciers advance and retreat. During cold phases, Denisovans may have been pushed into small refuges, isolated from one another for thousands of years. When the ice retreated, they expanded again, sometimes reconnecting. Each cycle of climate left its mark. The planet itself guided how populations diverged and occasionally mixed. One branch has left particularly clear evidence. On the high Tibetan plateau, a Denisovan population adapted to extreme altitude. From them, modern Tibetans inherited a gene that helps regulate oxygen use, allowing life above 4,000 meters. This single genetic gift shows how distinct branches contributed unique traits elsewhere. Denisovan DNA in Oceania strengthens the immune system against local diseases. Though the people themselves are gone, their legacy persists. Still, many puzzles remain. How many branches existed? 2, 3, or more? Were they distinct species or simply deeply divided populations of the same kind? Did they ever meet one another, or did isolation keep them apart for tens of millennia without more fossils? Certainty is impossible. Genetics sketches the outlines, but bones and tools are needed for details. Another lesser-known clue is how modern humans encountered Denisovans more than once. East Asians carry DNA from one branch, Oceanians from another. This means our ancestors did not meet Denisovans a single time, but multiple times, in different regions. Each meeting left its own mark. Human migration was not a straight path, but a chain of encounters across continents and islands. From a wider perspective, the Denisovan branches reveal a larger truth. Human evolution was not simple. It was not a clean sequence of species replacing one another. It was a braided stream, with branches diverging, reconnecting, and blending again. Denisovans were part of this braided pattern, as were Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. The puzzle of multiple branches demonstrates that categories blur when seen over vast timescales. The scarcity of bones reminds us how fragile evidence can be. In Asia, preservation is uneven. Caves can hold fossils for millennia, but outside them, heat, water, and roots erase traces quickly. The lives of entire populations may never be reconstructed through archaeology alone. Their only testimony lies within modern genomes. DNA is a hidden record, more enduring than fragile bones. On a planetary scale, the Denisovan branches show us how much remains unseen. We know of their existence not through abundant fossils, but through whispers in our cells. Their story illustrates both the limits and the possibilities of science. From a few fragments and careful sequencing, entire hidden populations have been revealed. Their diversity was real, even if their faces remain unknown. The puzzle is unresolved, yet it changes how we view our past. Denisovans were not a single lost cousin, but many. They lived across Siberia, Tibet, Southeast Asia, and beyond. Each branch adapted to its world. Each contributed in small ways to the people alive today. Though bones are scarce, their presence is woven into humanity. The branches remind us that human history is not one story, but many threads, tangled and enduring across time. The Denisovans remain among the most mysterious of all ancient humans. Their name comes from a single cave in the Altai Mountains. Yet the genetic record shows that they once ranged far beyond that lonely site. They lived in high plateaus, in tropical forests, and perhaps on distant islands. And still, their physical remains are almost gone, compared to Neanderthals, who left many skeletons across Europe and Western Asia. The Denisovans seem to have vanished almost without a trace. This is why their presence is often described as fading, as if they slipped quietly from the world, leaving behind only fragments of bone and echoes in our DNA. Preservation is one reason. Most of Asia does not favor fossils. In the humid tropics, bone dissolves quickly. In river valleys, floods scatter and bury remains. In mountains, shifting ice grinds away traces. Even stone tools may be swallowed by soil and forests. Whole lifetimes could pass without leaving material that lasts long enough for archaeologists to find. This helps explain why we have so little to hold in our hands. Denisovans may have thrived in many places, but nature erased their presence. Yet the Earth itself remembers in other ways. Soil can preserve DNA. At Denisova Cave, scientists extracted fragments of Denisovan genetic material directly from sediments, even when no bones were visible. These traces may come from hair, skin, or bodily fluids shed by people who once lived there. Similar methods have begun to reveal Denisovan DNA in other caves, offering faint signals of their presence. It is remarkable that a species so absent of bones can still be detected in the dust beneath our feet, but these traces are incomplete. They tell us who was there, not what they looked like, nor how they lived. The mystery of their vanishing is sharpened when compared to Neanderthals. Neanderthals disappear around 40,000 years ago, but before that, they left a rich trail of fossils and tools. Denisovans, in contrast, seem to dissolve into silence. Their DNA enters our species, yet their record in stone and bone is nearly blank. Did they vanish earlier than Neanderthals, or did they endure much longer, hidden in forests and mountains until even their final remains decayed? Some genetic evidence suggests that modern humans encountered them in Southeast Asia, perhaps as recently as 30,000 years ago. If true, Denisovans may have been among the last archaic humans to disappear. Still, there is no firm proof. From a planetary perspective, the vanishing of Denisovans is part of a larger pattern. Across the late Pleistocene, extinctions spread widely. Mammoths, giant kangaroos, woolly rhinoceroses, and saber-toothed cats all disappeared. Climate shifts played a role, reshaping ecosystems. Human expansion also changed the balance, bringing competition for resources. Denisovans, like other species, may have been vulnerable to both forces. Small groups in scattered regions could not withstand the combined pressures of warming climates and the spread of Homo sapiens. Slowly, they faded. But unlike mammoths or cave lions, Denisovans did not disappear entirely. Their legacy continues in living people. Tibetans inherited a gene from them that makes survival at extreme altitude possible. Papuans carry immune system genes of Denisovan origin that strengthen their resistance to tropical diseases. Even East Asians retain small fragments of Denisovan DNA. These traces are quiet but enduring. They show that extinction is not always absolute. A branch may vanish where it still shaped the future through inheritance. A lesser-known detail is that modern humans encountered Denisovans multiple times. Genetic studies reveal at least 2 separate episodes of interbreeding. One affected populations in East Asia, another in Oceania. Each left distinct sets of DNA fragments. Well, this means Denisovans persisted in different regions, long enough for our species to meet them again and again. Their disappearance was gradual, but stretched across thousands of years, varying from place to place. In some regions, they may have been gone quickly. In others, they lingered. Still, their cultural voice is absent. Unlike Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, Denisovans have not been linked to art or symbolic expression. No carved ornaments, no painted walls, no decorated tools are tied to them. This silence may reflect the destruction of evidence rather than absence of creativity. Organic materials decay fast in most environments. Wooden tools, plant fibers, or pigments might all be lost. Yet the lack remains striking. Denisovans are present in genes, but absent in symbols. It is as though their cultural presence has vanished as thoroughly as their bones. The scarcity of evidence reminds us of the limits of archaeology. We can infer broad movements, but we cannot yet see the details of Denisovan life. How did they hunt? Did they use fire as widely as Neanderthals? What foods did they gather in forests or mountains? What stories did they tell under the stars, without artifacts? But the answers remain unknown. Their vanishing is not just physical, but intellectual. They elude us in mind as well as body. From a planetary scale, this vanishing presence offers a lesson in humility. Across the deep past, most living things left no trace that survives today. Whole peoples, entire species, came and went unseen. That we know Denisovans at all is extraordinary. A single finger bone opened the door to an entire hidden chapter of human history. The rest has been erased by time. It is a reminder that human prehistory is far larger than what can be touched or seen in museums. Even so, the Denisovans have not disappeared entirely. Their genes rise in the breath of every person who climbs the Tibetan plateau without gasping. They endure in the immune defenses of those who live in Oceania's forests. They remain in fragments within millions of people around the world. They are gone as a separate population, yet still alive as part of us. Their presence has vanished in bones, but persists in blood. The Denisovans are therefore both lost and enduring. Their absence in the ground is balanced by their persistence in our cells. They remind us that extinction and survival are not opposites, but can be intertwined. A people can vanish, yet continue reshaped into the fabric of another. Their story is unfinished, still waiting for the rare discovery that may one day reveal more of who they were. For now, their vanishing presence teaches us to see the silences of prehistory as part of the story itself, gaps that speak of how fragile memory can be on a restless planet. The Denisovans are gone as a distinct population, yet their legacy is written into the very fabric of living humans. Unlike Neanderthal, whose genetic contributions are more widely spread but often modest in effect, the Denisovan inheritance is patchy, powerful, and localized. It tells a story of encounters that were not singular, but repeated in multiple places and times. Each meeting left behind not only fragments of DNA, but traits that shaped human survival across vast regions. The most famous example lies on the Tibetan plateau. Life at high altitude is harsh. Oxygen levels are low. Winds are cold. The nights are long. For most mammals, survival above 4,000 meters is a struggle. Yet humans settled the plateau thousands of years ago and thrive there still. The reason is genetic, a variant of a gene called EPAS1 inherited from Denisovans. This variant alters the way the body responds to low oxygen, preventing the dangerous overproduction of red blood cells. It is a legacy invisible to the eye, yet vital to life in thin air. The Denisovans adapted to mountains long before our ancestors arrived, and when modern humans encountered them, the genetic key to altitude was passed on. Without it, Tibetan civilization might never have flourished where it did. In Oceania, another legacy endures. Populations in Papua New Guinea and nearby islands carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA, far higher than anywhere else. Many of these inherited genes influence the immune system. They sharpen defenses against viruses, parasites, and tropical diseases. Living in hot, humid forests requires resilience, and the Denisovan contribution offered exactly that. It is a reminder that encounters were not just accidents, they changed the course of survival. A lesser-known detail lies in Southeast Asia. Genetic studies suggest that groups in the Philippines, particularly among the Aita people of Luzon, carry some of the highest known levels of Denisovan ancestry. This indicates that interbreeding took place far from Siberia, across islands and coasts. The Denisovans were not confined to mountains and caves, but also spread through tropical lowlands. Here, their legacy shaped island populations whose descendants still carry that inheritance today. The mystery, however, is how many times these encounters occurred. Genetic evidence points to at least 2 major episodes, one affecting ancestors of East Asians, another affecting Oceanians. Some researchers argue there may have been more. The Denisovans may have lived in scattered groups across Asia, each distinct, each meeting modern humans in turn. If so, the blended legacy is not from one people, but from several, united only by a name given thousands of years later. The exact number of encounters remains unresolved, a puzzle written into chromosomes, but not yet fully deciphered. From a planetary scale, these legacies show how adaptation flows between species. Evolution is not only competition, but exchange. When Homo sapiens left Africa, they entered new worlds, frozen tundra, high mountains, steaming jungles. Survival often required more than what their bodies carried. Through contact with Neanderthals and Denisovans, they inherited adaptations shaped by long residence in those environments. In this way, humanity as we know it is not a single branch, but a woven fabric of multiple lineages. The Denisovan legacy is not uniform. Some genes remain beneficial today, while others may cause problems. Certain Denisovan variants have been linked to risks of metabolic disorders in modern populations. This duality shows how traits that once helped survival can become burdens in new contexts. What was an advantage in Ice Age forests may not suit modern urban life. Legacies are not static. They shift as environments change. One striking example of this shifting comes from immune genes. Some Denisovan contributions enhance resistance to pathogens, but may also increase risks of autoimmune conditions. The same gene that once protected against ancient parasites might now turn against the body itself. Evolution is filled with such trade-offs, where benefits in one age create costs in another. Denisovan legacies are no exception. Another lesser-known inheritance lies in sensory perception. Some Denisovan DNA fragments in modern populations influence taste and smell receptors. The practical effects are subtle, but they remind us that legacy is not only survival in harsh climates. It may also have shaped how people experience their environment, which plants they avoided, or which foods they favored. These details are faint, but they widen the picture of Denisovan influence. On a wider scale, the blended legacies of Denisovans and Neanderthals together make modern humans a mosaic. No living person is pure Homo sapiens in the strict sense. All carry fragments of these vanished cousins. The proportions vary, but the principle is the same. Humanity is not a single straight line. It is a mixture, built through encounters, shaped by exchange. The Denisovan legacy is part of that larger truth. The blending also tells us something about survival strategy. For small groups of Homo sapiens moving into unknown lands, interbreeding with local populations may have been rare but crucial. Each fragment of DNA gained was like acquiring new tools, better oxygen use, stronger immunity, sharper senses. These invisible tools were inherited across generations, shaping the success of our species. From this perspective, Denisovans did not vanish. They became part of the equipment that allowed humanity to thrive worldwide. The enduring mystery is how Denisovans themselves experienced these encounters. Did they see Homo sapiens as strangers, rivals, or simply others with whom life was occasionally shared? The archaeology is silent. no site has yet revealed a camp clearly occupied by both groups. We know only that their genes blended, whether through brief contacts, longer coexistence, or even shared families, we cannot say. The silence of the archaeological record leaves these questions open. From the view of deep time, blended legacies remind us that extinction is rarely absolute. Denisovans as a distinct group are gone, but their traits endure. They breathe with every person who thrives on the Tibetan plateau, who resists infections in the tropics, who carries fragments of DNA inherited from ancient encounters. The blending was not accidental background. It became part of what humanity is. In this way, Denisovans remain with us. Their legacy is not in museums or monuments, but in living bodies. Every step taken at altitude, every breath drawn in thin air, every immune response in tropical forests carries their mark. The Denisovans are lost, yet still present. Their blended legacy shows that human history is not the story of one species rising alone, but of many threads interwoven, continuing together even after some branches have faded. The Denisovans stand as one of the most elusive branches of the human family. Their story begins in fragments, a tooth, a finger bone, a few traces of DNA in cave sediments. Yet through genetics we know they once spread across a vast continent. From the cold steppes of Siberia to the forests of Southeast Asia, from Himalayan plateaus to distant island shores, they endured. Still, their trail ends in silence. By 30,000 years ago, they vanish from the fossil record, their lineage dissolved into memory. What remains are echoes in our genes, but not their living presence. Why they disappeared is a question that continues to occupy researchers. Climate change may have played a central role. During the late Pleistocene, the planet oscillated between glacial and interglacial phases. Expanding ice sheets lowered sea levels, exposed new lands, and changed global weather systems. Steppe grasslands advanced and retreated. Forest belts shifted by thousands of kilometers. For small populations like the Denisovans, every shift could mean loss of food, disruption of habitat, or forced migration. Adapting to one change was possible. Surviving many in succession may not have been. Competition also shaped their fate. Around 50 to 40,000 years ago, modern humans expanded widely across Asia. They carried new technologies, such as more complex blade tools and projectile weapons. They also formed larger social networks, allowing knowledge and resources to circulate more efficiently. When Homo sapiens reached lands where Denisovans lived, encounters were inevitable. Some were genetic exchanges, as the evidence of interbreeding shows. Others may have been competition for hunting grounds, caves, or water sources. In such encounters, the Denisovans may have slowly been outnumbered, absorbed, or displaced. A lesser-known detail is that Denisovan populations were probably never numerous. Genetic studies suggest they may have lived in small, scattered groups. Unlike Neanderthal, who left many fossils across Western Eurasia, Denisovans seem to have left very little. This scarcity hints at small population sizes from the beginning. For such groups, even modest pressures, climate shifts, disease, competition could have had severe consequences. Extinction does not always come from a single blow. It can arrive from gradual thinning until no group remains. At the same time, Denisovans did not vanish entirely. Their disappearance as a visible lineage is balanced by their survival in our DNA. The inheritance is strongest in Oceania and Southeast Asia, but traces exist across Asia as well. Some of these genes affect oxygen use, immunity, and metabolism. In this way, their lineage continues to influence living people. It is a paradox. They are gone, yet still present. From a planetary perspective, their disappearance fits into a broader wave of extinctions at the close of the Pleistocene. Many large mammals vanished, mammoths in the north, giant marsupials in Australia, mastodons in the Americas. Changing climates and human expansion together reshaped ecosystems. Denisovans were part of this reshaping. They were not immune to the same forces that transformed the rest of life on Earth. Their vanishing was one thread in a global pattern of loss and change. The mystery deepens because we cannot yet place their final moments. For Neanderthals, archaeological evidence fixes their disappearance around 40,000 years ago. For Denisovans, no such boundary exists. Their fossils remain confined to Denisova Cave, with hints in a few other places. DNA suggests they lived much farther afield, but we do not know when or where their last groups persisted. Some genetic models suggest encounters with modern humans as late as 30,000 years ago in island Southeast Asia. If true, Denisovans may have been among the last archaic humans to share the planet with us. Yet the archaeological record remains silent. Another unresolved question concerns their diversity. Denisovan DNA points to at least 2, and possibly more, regional populations. Some were closer to Neanderthals, others more distinct. These groups may have occupied very different landscapes, high-altitude mountains, equatorial forests, or coastal islands. If so, their disappearance was not a single event, but many, occurring in different times and places. Some groups may have faded early, while others endured longer. Without fossils, we cannot yet trace the full sequence. The absence of their cultural record is striking. Neanderthals left tools, ornaments, and perhaps even cave paintings. Modern humans left abundant art and symbolic objects. Denisovans, so far, left only a scattering of stone tools, hard to separate from those of their neighbors. Did they create art that has not survived? Did they build with wood, weave fibers, or paint walls in ways that have vanished? Or were their cultural expressions more ephemeral, carried in song and ritual that left no mark in the ground? This silence shapes the mystery of their vanishing. They disappear not only as bodies, but also as voices. A planetary scale perspective helps us see their fate as part of the constant flux of life. Species appear, adapt, and vanish. Continents shift, climates swing, ecosystems transform. Against such vast processes, even whole peoples may leave only faint traces. That Denisovans are known at all is extraordinary. A single finger bone, a single tooth, opened a window into their existence. Without those fragments, we would never know they had lived, loved, and wandered across half a continent. Their disappearance reminds us how easily whole chapters of human history can be erased by time. Yet extinction in this case does not mean oblivion. Denisovan genes shape high-altitude survival in Tibet. They strengthen immune systems in Oceania. They remain in fragments within millions of people today. Their lineage is not entirely gone, but transformed. They live on as part of us, invisible but enduring. In this sense, their disappearance is partial. Their bodies are gone, their culture is unknown, but their biological heritage continues. The vanishing of the Denisovans, then, is not a single story, but is a blend of climate change, small populations, competition, interbreeding, and chance. It is the silence of bones erased by tropical soils and the persistence of genes carried across generations. It is both absence and presence, loss and survival. Their lineage has ended as a separate branch, but it endures in the fabric of humanity. In the quiet spaces of caves and mountains, their memory lingers. Each discovery of a fragment renews their presence, however briefly. Each genetic study that traces their influence brings them back into the story. They are gone, yet not forgotten. They are lost, yet still here. The Denisovan lineage has vanished, but its echoes remain woven into the living world. The Denisovans are no longer here as a people, but their presence endures within us. It is carried not in objects or monuments, but in the smallest fragments of DNA that shape how we live and breathe today. Their story is not one of complete erasure. It is one of quiet persistence woven into the living bodies of millions. Each strand of Denisovan heritage reveals how human history is not a straight line, but a web, in which vanished branches continue to influence the present. One of the clearest legacies lies in the ability of some modern populations to survive in extreme environments. The EPAS1 gene variant, inherited from Denisovans, allows Tibetans and other highland peoples to thrive on the roof of the world. In the thin air above 4,000 meters, oxygen is scarce. Without adaptation, blood thickens dangerously, straining the heart. With the Denisovan variant, the body responds more efficiently, allowing life to continue where it otherwise could not. This is not only a survival tool, but the foundation of entire cultures and societies. Cities, temples, and communities now stand where once only icy winds moved, enabled, in part, by a legacy from people long gone. In Oceania and parts of Southeast Asia, Denisovan DNA has taken a different form. It strengthens the immune system, offering resistance to tropical pathogens. Forests filled with parasites, insects, and bacteria posed severe challenges to early settlers. Genes inherited from Denisovans gave protection. These fragments, invisible and silent, helped ensure survival in lands far from where Denisovans themselves may have lived. They remain today in the descendants of those who carried them across generations. A lesser-known detail is that Denisovan contributions are not uniform. Some lineages of modern humans inherited different sets of Denisovan DNA. People in Papua New Guinea, for example, carry distinct fragments compared to populations in the Philippines or mainland Asia. This diversity hints at multiple encounters, each leaving behind different legacies. The Denisovans were not a single group, but a constellation of populations, each with their own adaptations. Their genetic inheritance is a map of these varied encounters, still visible in our chromosomes. The mystery is how many Denisovan groups truly existed and where they lived. Fossils are scarce, limited mainly to Denisova Cave. Yet the DNA picture shows deep splits among Denisovan lineages. Some appear closer to Neanderthals, others more distant. This suggests that what we call Denisovans may in fact have been several related populations spread across Asia. If so, the legacy within modern humans is not from one people, but from many. Their shared fate was disappearance, but their distinct contributions remain alive in us. From a planetary perspective, this shows how survival spreads across lineages. Humans did not adapt alone. As they moved into new worlds, they absorbed traits from those already adapted. Oxygen use, Immune responses, metabolic processes, all of these came through blending. Humanity became a patchwork of inheritance, not only from direct ancestors, but also from cousins now gone. The Denisovan fragments are part of a larger pattern in which human history is not isolation, but exchange. The influence of Denisovan DNA also extends into subtler areas. Some fragments affect taste and smell, shaping sensory perception. Others influence fat metabolism, which may have mattered in Ice Age environments where survival required efficient energy use. These details remind us that legacy is not always dramatic. It may be quiet, shaping daily experience in ways so subtle that they pass unnoticed. At the same time, not all legacies are beneficial in the present. Some Denisovan variants are linked to increased risks of modern conditions such as metabolic disorders. What once was useful in Ice Age landscapes can, in new environments, become a burden. This reflects a wider truth. Evolution works for survival in a given moment, not for future health. Denisovan DNA helped our ancestors endure, but in today's world, some fragments may no longer fit. Their legacy is thus complex, both helpful and problematic, depending on the context. A striking point is that nearly everyone outside Africa carries some inheritance from archaic humans, whether Neanderthal or Denisovan. Together, these legacies form part of what it means to be human today. There is no pure Homo sapiens untouched by these encounters. Humanity is a mosaic, a fabric woven of multiple threads. The Denisovan contribution, though less well known than the Neanderthal one, is a vital part of this fabric. Their presence within us also changes how we see extinction. Denisovans disappeared as a visible population, but they did not vanish entirely. They became part of us. Each breath at altitude, each immune defense against tropical disease carries their influence. They survive not as a separate people, but as elements within our own species. Their extinction is, therefore, partial, transformed into persistence. This blurring between absence and presence is one of the central lessons of their story. The archaeology of Denisovans remains frustratingly limited. No complete skeleton, no painted walls, no clear settlement sites. Yet genetics has revealed a legacy more enduring than artifacts. Genes pass across generations, persisting for tens of thousands of years. Through them, we know Denisovans not as shadows, but as active contributors to what we are. Their legacy is not in stone or bone, but in the quiet rhythms of living bodies. On a planetary scale, this makes us realize that human history cannot be separated from the wider web of life. Just as plants and animals evolved through exchanges, so too did humans. Denisovans remind us that our lineage is interwoven, not isolated. The resilience of modern humans is built on the survival strategies of others. Without those inheritances, many environments might have remained inaccessible. Our global spread was not only our own achievement, but the product of blended legacies. The deeper mystery is what kind of people the Denisovans were. Did they sing song, tell stories, or create symbols? Did they share rituals when new lives began or when others ended? These aspects are lost. Their legacy in our DNA is measurable, but their cultural legacy is silent. We know only that they lived long across vast lands, endured shifting climates, and met with our ancestors often enough to leave a trace. The rest remains beyond recovery, at least for now. And yet, perhaps that is fitting. Their story, like many in prehistory, is not about grand monuments or clear narratives. It is about persistence in quiet forms. Their inheritance in our bodies is a subtle reminder that history is not only what is remembered, it is also what continues unnoticed. The Denisovans live on in this way, not as a separate people, but as silent partners in the survival of humanity. In the end, what remains in us is more than DNA. It is the recognition that humanity is not singular. We are the result of many encounters, many exchanges, many shared paths. The Denisovans remind us that extinction is not the end if fragments endure. They are present in the strength of highland lungs, in the defenses of immune systems, in subtle aspects of perception. They are present every time their inherited traits help life continue. The Denisovans are gone, but not forgotten. Their legacy is not written in stone, but in living tissue. It is carried in silence, across generations, across continents. Their story does not end in disappearance. It continues, quietly, in us. The story of the Denisovans closes not with a dramatic ending, but with silence. Their voices are gone. Their tools lie unmarked among layers of earth. Their faces remain unknown, yet their presence endures, carried quietly within us. In caves and mountains where they once lived, only stone and wind remain. Snow falls over ridges that once echoed with footsteps. Rivers carve valleys that once held campfires. Time moves forward, erasing traces, yet never fully erasing memory. For in our bodies, in our very breath, fragments of Denisovan life continue. Theirs is a reminder of how fragile, and yet how enduring, human history is. A single bone, a strand of DNA can reveal worlds otherwise forgotten. Entire peoples may vanish, yet their influence survives in those who follow. In this way, Denisovans are not gone. They are present in our lungs at high altitude, in our defenses against unseen threats, in the quiet architecture of life that flows onward. The planet has turned through many ages. Glaciers have come and gone. Seas have risen and fallen. Forests and deserts have traded places. Amid such vast cycles, human lineages rise and vanish. Denisovans walked their path for hundreds of thousands of years. Then their path merged with ours. As night settles, their story rests with us. It is written in silence, in landscapes, in the unseen code of life. What remains is not loss, but continuity. The Denisovans endure, not as strangers, but as part of who we are.